Hi, welcome to another episode of the Sports Psychology Podcast. I'm here with the talented and beautiful Georgia Miller, one of our performance coaches at Peak Performance Sports. Today we're going to talk about a very specific topic and challenge for athletes, and that is athletes who tend to stop their skills. It's called balking. You're listening to the Sports Psychology Podcast. Georgia, one of the challenges for many athletes, whether it's gymnastics or skating or cheerleading, is athletes that just stop their skills in the middle of their routine. It could be called balking or bailing out or just popping their jumps, for example. What's leading to that challenge? Like, is it fear? Is it they're just worried about not executing the skill? What leads up mentally for an athlete to just stop a skill that they know how to do?
Yeah, I would say both of those. I think when athletes are really concerned about the outcome, then it takes them away from execution and what they're doing in the moment. So a lot of times when athletes are thinking about like the result that they want, they think that's a good thing, but it's really actually leading you further from reaching those goals because you aren't actually thinking about the things that need to happen in order to get that outcome that you want. So worrying about outcomes, or a big one for gymnastics and figure skaters when they're popping their jumps, is they're worried about falling and injuring themselves. So when they're worried about those things, it can lead to that hesitation, and then they completely just bail or balk.
Yeah, it's a big one for pole vaulters. I've worked with quite a few pole vaulters, and they'll just run through the pit. In other words, they won't even attempt it. They'll bail out of the skill altogether. And after a while, it starts to become a habit. Like they start running through the pit too much, and now it's like, well, what are they going to do? Are they going to take it up or are they going to bail, right? So it starts to get in their head quite a bit. Mm-hmm. So what can we do to help those athletes stop bailing or balking?
One way is to shift your focus. So we were talking about one of the biggest things that leads to this is worrying about outcomes. Well, you need to be really focused on execution. So for example, with pole vaulting, you might talk about like their speed and running, and with gymnasts too. With figure skaters, we're talking about the lead into their jumps and staying tight. So give them very specific, smaller process goals or cues to focus on that keeps them locked in on that execution of it versus worrying about the outcome.
Yeah, one of the things that I've used is this idea of being more aggressive with your skills, just taking it to it, having that aggressive mindset so you can get through that skill rather than that tentative mindset. Is that kind of what we're talking about here?
Yeah, definitely. And I'll go off of that and give another tip here is to fully commit to it. Because if you're being a little tentative as to what you're saying and maybe only going in like hoping and praying and only giving like 70% commitment to it, then it's definitely not going to work out.
So maybe I can land this double axel. That type of thing.
Yeah, I hope I
can
do this. Yeah, though that doesn't sound very confident.
No.
Yeah, so being able to, if you're going to do it, let's 100% fully commit to doing it.
Earlier in this series, we talked about visualization. Would that come into play for an athlete to see that double axel and just over and over see themselves completing it and landing it solidly?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to help athletes stop balking. Also, is to be able to visually see yourself going through the entire skill. And I'll have my athletes, I say, even if it's hard for you to maybe visualize that, watch film of yourself over and over again of successful times when you have executed that jump or that routine that you're trying to do.
I think the biggest publicized balk would be Simone Biles, right? In the twisties, and her not being able to complete her vault and really pulling out of the Olympics. Is that another level? Is that a similar thing, do you feel like, when you just can't complete that vault and you're not going to do it because you're scared?
Yeah, I think it is at another level. I think the twisties are an extreme, but I think the repetitiveness of balking and just giving yourself that option, then it can definitely lead to something more intense like the twisties or even the yips.
Okay, so we have focusing on the process, right? Focusing on what you want to do in the skill, in other words. We have visualizing it over and over again to see yourself doing it successfully. What else do you have for us?
You know, I think a great one is just to take a little time out. have a reset. Figure skaters, go to the boards, take a breath, grab some water. Gymnasts, go grab some water, talk to a teammate. But just take your mind off it for a moment and maybe even go to a different skill and then come back to it with a fresh mindset. I use this example a lot with my athletes, especially my high schoolers and collegiate athletes, is sometimes when they're doing homework, it can be so frustrating and their head is cloudy and they're almost on the verge of tears. They don't know how to do it and they just slam their textbook shut and then come back to it the next day and they're like, why was I crying about this? This is so easy. It's because now their mind is clear and they can clearly see the problem for what it is. And so the same thing with your athletic performance. Sometimes you just need to take a little reset and come back to it with a fresh mind.
Yeah. This is a massive issue, I think, for both gymnasts and skaters, but even cheer athletes as well. We get a lot of contact from parents with cheer athletes and gymnasts that are balking out there. And then we ask them, well, are you doing it with a spot? Can you do it with a spot? Oh, yeah, we can do it with a spot, right? Or if maybe the beam is on the ground, she can execute with the beam on the ground. Mm-hmm. But as soon as you remove those crutches, I'll call them crutches, of the spot or the beam being low, then the athlete all of a sudden can't do the skill. But really, they have the skills to do the skill, mm-hmm. right? Ultimately, what's holding them back? Their mind is holding them back.
Yeah, they're approaching it with a different type of mindset. So naturally, different results are going to follow.
And we talk a little bit about mental choreography. Do you think that would help in this situation?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that definitely goes back to just the visualizing. It's just another form of it.
Yeah. Great. Anything else for us today?
No, I think this is a great conversation to help with athletes and those skills where the bailing, balking, and hesitating can definitely creep in there.
All right, I've been talking with Georgia Miller, one of our mental performance coaches at Peak Performance Sports. If you're interested in working with Georgia, contact us at peaksports.com. We do one-on-one mental coaching with athletes, and we also work with teams in person and also via Zoom. All right, thanks for joining us today.